Philosophical essays can be especially challenging for a couple of reasons. One is the topics are vague and unstructured, and there is a high risk of interpreting the question incorrectly. Secondly, even when you interpret it right, it's not easy to find something concrete to write about in such topics. Earlier, there used to be a choice to leave out such topics, but over the years, it is becoming clear that UPSC does not want to leave you with choice but to write them. I think the rationale is that GS type topics, people are writing 1200 word GS answers, which doesn't really help in understanding the writing skill of a candidate. Anyway, since we do not have much of a choice to leave out code-based philosophical essay topics, it makes sense to learn to write them well. So I'm suggesting a broad framework to help you write a good code-based philosophical essay. First, the introduction. The best way to start a philosophical essay is mostly through a real-life anecdote. Why is it so? Because these topics generally tend to be moral sayings and quotes that are widely accepted. So it becomes easy to find interesting anecdotes that have these topics as their underlying themes. For example, in one of the essays that I wrote titled "Change is the End Result of All Learning," I started with an anecdote about how in the state of Tamil Nadu, the midday meal scheme was introduced as a result of their learning the fact that children are dropping out of school for reasons like ill health and malnutrition. And then I went on to say that it proves the saying that change is the end result of all learning. Another example can be for a topic like be the change you wish to see in the world. You can think of Mahatma Gandhi's anecdote where he was thrown out of a train at Pietermaritzburg station, after which he became the force of change he wished to see in the world. So have such anecdotes ready and use them in philosophical essays. Now once the introduction part is done, we come to the main body. Main body essentially consists of two components: elaboration and analysis of the topic. In elaboration, what you do is you take the statement and interpret it across various segments to amplify the topic. Philosophical essays especially can be done this way because they are mostly general sayings that are widely accepted and tend to be true across sectors. So try and give a widest possible interpretation for the topic at hand. Once the elaboration part is done, we move on to the analysis part of the body. Here you discuss 2-3 major questions pertaining to that particular topic. We'll discuss more on this through an example when we discuss towards the end of this video. Now, after you discuss these major issues, in the conclusion part, you can talk about the solutions to the issues and questions you raised in your main body, so that it becomes a nice transition from the main body to the conclusion. And towards the end, you write a summary paragraph and end with a rhetoric so that you end the essay on a high. Now, let us understand this through an example. There was a question recently which read, "Best for an individual may not be best for the society." Now for this introduction, how I would introduce for such a topic. I would start with 2008 financial crisis and say how some individual companies, for their own selfish motive, have done transactions that led to their individual benefit but at the cost of society. And then go on to say that this proves the age-old saying that what is necessarily best for the individual may not be best for the society, which basically forms a good introduction, which is short and crisp. In the main body, then I would go on to elaborate the statement across various segments to kind of develop the main body. Under this, you can think and interpret it as widely as possible. So you can have political, constitutional, economic, and international. So under political, you can think of how vote buying might help an unscrupulous politician, but at the expense of societal democracy. Under constitutional, you can think of how personal liberty is best for an individual, but unchecked freedom might not be best for the society. And then you can cite an example where under Article 19, Constitution also imposes reasonable restrictions. Under the economic dimension, you can think of a laissez-faire capitalist example, where how it can help only the wealthy entrepreneurs and rich people, but doesn't really ensure social justice. and equality. And even in the international dimension, you can give an example of how United Nations Security Council, which is serving the best interest of a very small set of nations, but has not been successful in averting major crises such as the recent Syrian crisis or other global challenges such as climate change. So this is how you interpret and amplify the statement to kind of develop your main body of the philosophical essay. Now once you're done with the elaboration segment, now you move on to the analysis part. In the analysis part, you raise 3 questions pertaining to the topic, the most important questions. For instance, here, the first question can be about what drives interest of an individual, and then discuss things like money, personal growth, well-being, freedom, etc. A second question would be something like you discuss about what is in the best interest of the society. You can write it in this paragraph about the things that are important to the society, such as equality, fairness, and justice. And thirdly, you write about what causes the divergence between an individual and a societal interest. So you can think of reasons such as obscure laws, unchecked power, compromised institutions, etc. In each paragraph, discuss each of these questions. That forms the end of your analysis segment, and then we move to the conclusion segment. Here you can start straight away with the solutions to the problems you raised in the analysis portion, so that the transition is smooth. So in this example, start your conclusion with a discussion on how we can align individual interests with societal interests. So in this example, you can suggest solutions like having the right balance of power, ensuring checks and balances, democratic consensus for decision making, strengthening independent institutions so that they act in everyone's interest, etc. And once the solution is done, you come to the summary paragraph where you bring together the whole write-up in 3-4 sentences, where you state your central point so that it refreshes the mind of the examiner. And towards the end of the essay, you end with a rhetoric consisting of a quote or a phrase to end the essay on a high. So this is a broad framework that I'm suggesting. Try and experiment with previous year questions. Take any example and start writing them and come up with your own examples and your own dimensions and interpretations. So over time, it becomes very easy to tackle philosophical essay topics.